We do have Donald Trump. Against all the forecasts, he took the presidency. If he can help bring so many Republicans and anti-Rhino Republicans into Congress, into the House, into the Senate by next November, first of all, one thing I love about that idea is that he will so demoralize the progressives throughout the country that in itself will be a major victory. And that is why we in New York, even though we don't have a chance of adding Republicans, many Republicans, to the House, or any Republican, I don't think either Gillibrand or Schumer are running for re-election.
Yeah, Gillibrand
is this year's Gillibrand. Thank you for the correction. Even though we don't have a chance, it doesn't matter if she's running or not. She's our next U.S. Senator. But if Donald Trump can get more votes for the New York State congressmen who are running, and if Gillibrand could, if she's going to win by a whisker, that would so demoralize the Democrats and the progressives that in itself can be considered an enormous win. Okay, I guess there's a lot more I can say, and maybe if there are questions at the end of this, I'll chime in with that. But I want to get to the way in which we can accomplish a major, major victory in the state and in this country by reaching the one group of Americans who have it in their power to rescue the country. They are the same people who put Donald Trump in office by going to the polls November 8th of 2016. And what they have to realize is that Trump is genuine. He wants to make America great again. He is genuine. He wants to put America first. And he has proved it over and over since he took office. But he cannot do the rest of it alone. He cannot do much more alone because he has so much waged against him in the media, in the colleges, in the courts even, for lawsuits that are being filed. But the same people who put him in office, if they realized he cannot do much by himself, that they not only have to support him as president, but support the Republicans who are on his side, who will lend air support for everything he's trying to do between now and the next presidential election. To let them realize that they need to support him every bit as much now as they did by going to the polls. And the way they do that is supporting candidates who openly come out in favor of him, which this guy Saccone in Pennsylvania, in District 12, CD12 in Pennsylvania, came out foursquare in support of him, and it was really a tragedy that the Democrat won. But can't do anything about that now. But that could be a blessing in disguise also, because the Democrat won by being a Republican. He did. He did not invite Nancy Pelosi, he did not invite Schumer, he did not invite any progressive to come to Pennsylvania, this southwest corner of Pennsylvania, to campaign for him. He was against Planned Parenthood over and over again. He came out as a Republican. And the reason that could be a blessing is once he lands in Congress, he is going to have so much pressure to take the Nancy Pelosi end of the political spectrum, and Dick Durbin and all the rest, and that really is going to upset the people who voted for him and put him in office last week. Guess what? So the backlash against him and against his phoniness, the fraud he perpetrated, could bode very, very well for all of Pennsylvania for the 2020 presidential elections and everything. So that could be good. On the other hand, if he stays true to the principles he enunciated, which were mainly Republican principles, then he's going to create a rift within the Democratic Party, and more Democrats are going to see, I know how to win my next election, all I got to do is sound like Donald Trump. So I'll take either one of those. So that's basically the prospects for the future. Who are the Americans who can save the country? The forgotten men and women. In case anyone here has forgotten them, let me sum up who they are. First, they are the people who put Donald Trump in the White House. Very important. Second, they are the ones we used to call the low information voters. Yes, they voted. It was their civic duty. But for all of these years, they didn't have a clue who or what they were voting for. They didn't like politicians much. That's another reason that they didn't vote. They weren't politically engaged. It's actually that they were saying to the political class, forget you. And that's the clean version.
Yes.
They were saying, we don't trust you. You promise us anything your campaign officials tell us we want to hear, and then you get into office and you do whatever you please. You can't fight City Hall. What's one more vote going to do either way? And so Americans remain disengaged with politics until 2016, when every opinion survey said that they believe the country is heading in the wrong direction, that the country's direction has to be reversed. And they went to the polls. They believed that they were being forgotten, that in the name of the general welfare, all kinds of entitlements were established, and when Obamacare came to the surface, it cost them so much of their wealth and their peace of mind and sleep. They said, I have had it. This has got to stop. This has got to be reversed. And as I say, against every national opinion survey, every national survey opinion organization, Donald Trump was put into office, something no one believed could happen. Well, these people need to stay engaged politically. They need to realize that their job is not finished, that there's so much more that needs to be done. But here's the good news, and this is the rest of my talk. There are 4 specific ways that each of us can appeal to these forgotten men and women that can really make a landing on their brains and bring them and keep them into in the political process, to remain politically engaged. Not maybe to join Tea Party, not maybe to send campaign contributions, but certainly to go out in November of 2018 and vote for a Republican, and preferably those who sound most like Donald Trump himself. 4 specific ways of appealing to them. We all have family, we all have friends, we have colleagues and co-workers in whatever we do, even some who work for the state, who can be reached because they are not intellectuals. They are not, thank heavens, they are not college educated. And one of the saving graces of the country is that only 40% max ever went to college. That's why all the Democrats want free college tuition, to get, for the purposes of indoctrination, nothing else, and brainwashing. And they're not getting that so much because all the states are already broke. There's no money for that or nearly anything else, thank heavens. Okay, 4 ways of appealing to the forgotten men and women of the country. By the way, they believe they are the people who work hard. Like Rush Limbaugh says, they are the men and women who make America work. And yet, in the name of the general welfare, bills are passed, money is spent, and it's money coming out of their pocket. And they're right about that. I like to say, when Congress confers special benefits on some, it denies equal protection under law to all. Equal protection is not just against criminal indictments without warrantless searches or anything like that. It's any bill Congress passes and the president signs, or a governor or a mayor signs, that takes money out of some people's pockets in order to benefit other people. That is welfare. That is un-American to the core, because when Congress benefits some, it denies equal protection under law to all. Okay, 4 ways of appealing to people you know, people you talk to every day, people you see at work, at the gym, on the golf course, on the fishing boats, whatever you do. First, patriotism. Americans are patriots. They have no idea what that means, though. What it means to be a patriot in its fullest sense is to be acquainted with the founding principles of the country. I don't care if you've memorized it or not, but it means that you understand that all men are created equal and endowed with certain inalienable rights. We know what they are, but there are 2 problems with appealing to patriotism. 2 reasons it is not as effective an appeal as the next 3 I'm going to mention. The first reason is that founding principles, like I just started to name, they are so abstract and removed from concrete policy issues. What on earth does Jefferson's Declaration of Independence have to do with expanding Obamacare or creating opioid centers to deal with all the addiction in the country, or minimum wage? Now, there is an answer to that. Founding principles apply very directly and very specifically to every policy issue. But please don't expect the average American on the street to understand the connection, to pin it down, to concretize what those principles mean for whether or not government should be funding opioid centers or raising the minimum wage or any other policy. The second reason why patriotism is not as effective an appeal as I would like it to be is because Americans' expression of patriotism lasts only between 18 hours before July 4th to 9 hours after July 4th. And then it's out the window until next year when they gather on the public square to recite the Declaration of Independence without being able to concretize it. And just it goes on and on and on. Okay, thank heavens the next 3 appeals are far more effective. Can be. But you got to apply them. We all have to put them into practice. And if you want a specific goal, how about doubling the average membership at every meeting of the Brooklyn Tea Party group by 1 year from today? Or even before that, before November, say. That should be a goal uppermost in all of our minds.
Bring a friend.
Yes.
But talk to them first and use these appeals. I think you'll see how effective they can be. So the second appeal is, the first appeal was to patriotism. I like alliteration, so I'm doing all these things with P's. The second is pocketbook, simple pocketbook issues. What I tell somebody when I approach them, speak to a group for the first time or whatever, I say, if you're paying as much as 50% of your income in combined federal, state, and local taxes, you're already half slave and half free. That's not American. Why put up with it? You don't have to. And it's even worse than that. I have been breaking down the federal budget since I wrote the first edition of this book in 1976. I can attest to the fact that 75 cents of every dollar the federal government spends is not spent on defending this country's freedoms. It is spent on welfare programs and policies. 75 cents of every dollar. The entire Pentagon, our entire military budget, all the armed forces, all the services spend $18 billion of the federal budget. The rest of it is social entitlements, but almost as much, not quite as much, is basically money going to established special interests who are doing nothing all day and all night but lobbying Congress. 75 cents of every dollar, year after year after year. Under George Bush, Under Obama, it's basically, the figure has been the same. Then I asked the person, what would your life be like? How much better off would your family be? How many more vacations would you be able to afford if you could keep 75 cents of every dollar you pay in taxes, combined taxes, realizing that you would be exactly as safe as you are today? As a matter of fact, with that great a reduction in military spending, with welfare spending rather, the government would be able to spend so much more where it's needed on defending us. And here was Donald Trump signing this horrendous bill that he understood was horrendous because we need so much more in defense spending. My hope was that what the Secretary of Defense told him is that we have a new advanced weapon system that can do an amazing job against North Korea or China or Russia, but this is the money we need to develop this system. So it wasn't just we need more money in general to the Pentagon, but the Pentagon is giving Trump a plan of a specific weapon system that they are able to build, or a new generation of stealth fighter, or stealth bomber, or nuclear submarine that was so vital to our interest and would give us so much power to thwart North Korea in their nuclear ambitions that he just had to sign that bill. He just needed it, and he'll deal with the massive overspending in the future. I'm hoping beyond hope that that was his thinking and that was the advice he was given. So, but to make Americans realize how they are struggling today unnecessarily, and all they have to do is go to the polls every other year, or what have you, and duplicate that on a state level or a municipal level, and their lives could be dramatically improved. The benefits, the ease it would be to save for their children's college education and everything else they care to do. So that is dealing with the pocketbook issues. The third, I don't like the word, but I had to keep the P's, so it's patronage. Patronage is basically the activities the establishment engages in to get special favors, by the way, and it's corruption. And the forgotten Americans heard the message from Donald Trump, but not just from Donald Trump. Ted Cruz talked about the Washington cartel. It's the same corruption, different names, same corruption. Bernie Sanders talked about the millionaires and billionaires who run riot over Washington, which is true also. And there were enough progressives to support Bernie Sanders. So even on the left, there are millions of Americans who realize corruption is bad. By the way, about corruption, I say this. Corruption doesn't begin with special interests seeking special favors from Congress. It begins with the congressmen who pretend they have the power to grant those favors. Of course, again, whenever Congress confers special benefits on some, it denies equal protection under law to all. It is all corruption, and it has been that way from the beginning of the country, unfortunately, much more so after the progressive era. So patronage, and Americans have expressed their disapproval. They chanted as much as lock her up at the Trump rallies, so they chanted, drain the swamp, drain the swamp. It is a message that can successfully appeal to Americans, and then that they are the ones who are paying the freight for the corruption caused by the establishment and their cronies in Congress. Again, if you practice how to sell that message, you will find more people attending these meetings monthly. And certainly by next November, if you apply these appeals, if you talk to people, by the way, I have a personal rule that puts me at a very big disadvantage. My principle is not to